Welcome to the Why Not Today podcast, where we celebrate courage, determination, and the power of saying why not today. I'm your host, Leslie Kane, and in each episode, we dive into inspiring stories of individuals who have taken bold steps, faced their fears, and embraced the possibility of today. From entrepreneurs to artists, dreamers to doers, we explore the moments when they said, enough waiting, why not today? Join me as we uncover the heartwarming, the audacious, and the transformative. Whether it's pursuing a lifelong passion, overcoming obstacles, or simply choosing joy, our guests share their journeys and inspire us all. I started this podcast in honor of my father, Patrick Kane, who often did say, why not today? And I always share, remember, you're just one decision away from changing your life. And before we start the podcast, I just want to remind everybody listening, watching, to share it with a friend. Share this podcast, tell a friend to listen to it, and check out all the Why Not Today podcast stuff at the website, which is whynottodaypodcast.com. But review it, like it, share it. If you know somebody that could be encouraged by this. And today it's going to be an interesting conversation. I have my guest, Sharon Ferraro. Did I pronounce that correct?
Ferraro.
Okay. And we're going to talk about her courage stories. We're going to talk about the business. We're going to talk about a nonprofit she started. And then we're also going to tie in some personality assessments with the DISC personality. So we're going to do a lot today. So I met Sharon. I don't even remember where I first met you.
I don't either.
Networking something with your nonprofit.
Preston.
Yeah. And then we keep just crossing paths, and then recently reconnected and had coffee the other day and just really connected. And I love the nonprofit you and your husband and daughter have started and your message, but also you've got a powerful training business that you and your husband run, and you've had an interesting life journey. I know the journey with your daughter and the nonprofit. We'll talk a little bit about that. But I think I was reintroduced to you several years ago when I went through the Leadership Fairfax program. So you guys just keep
Yeah,
popping into my life.
I know. And then we ran into each other at a movie theater and we were comparing the popcorn and service of the movie theater. Do you remember that?
Yes. Wasn't too good. We won't throw out names. But so Sharon, why don't you introduce yourself, give us a little bio of you, and then we'll go through and talk about courage and
Okay.
courage journey.
I come from upstate New York. And a fun fact, Leslie's always about fun facts.
I am.
When I met my husband, the first year we knew each other, we didn't know each other's last name. We just kept running into each other. He managed a store and I would stop in every once in a while. Turns out we have the same last name.
Really?
So that sort of started our journey together. We both ended up in the Big Brother, Big Sister program separately. And then we kind of realized we both were doing that. And so it just seemed like it was meant to be. We moved down here for his business work in 1984.
And
And
that's just listening down here means Northern Virginia.
oh yeah, right. Northern Virginia from upstate New York. We were in Albany at the time. And we both, just kept working, commuting. And at one point, we were trying to look for the perfect time to have our daughter, which, when you're trying to have a child, there's no perfect time.
No.
And his job changed soon after she was born. He wanted to run his own business. And then 3 or 4 years later, I said, you know what? I'm going to do that too with you. And I joined him. So we've had this blessing of a business, a training business since then. And then we had developed this blessing of a foundation. And I have
We'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah. And I have a very strong faith. That's really the foundation of everything. For me, walking in God's love, and that's all part of the courage philosophy. And just keep busy here, work out of my home, and love reading and gardening and praying and working out.
So a funny story. And I love all the connections. I was talking to one of my neighbors the other day, and she's been to the lunch a couple times, and I'm like, you need to come to this one. She goes, well, I know Michael and I know Sharon and their daughter. She's a spin.
At Lifetime.
Melanie.
That's who Michael knows. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, what a small world. So Melanie's dog Bosco and my dog are best friends.
Oh.
All the connections.
Yeah, we've had a wonderful time here in getting involved in a lot of nonprofits. We both went through Leadership Fairfax. I was chair of the board for Main Street Child Development Center for over 10 years, which is a nonprofit center for the underserved families, and have been on Northern Virginia Family Service award committee and, different other
Those
organizations.
of
So
us, you get involved and it helps you be a better person. And it
absolutely.
also, it helps grow businesses. You don't do it with that intention, but people know, like,
Yeah,
and trust you when you build that.
that's right.
So Sharon, what does courage mean to you?
You ask that every month at the luncheon, and it always seems to be, going through something even in the face of fear. But recently I was rethinking it and I came across a Hebrew definition of it, which is strength of heart.
Oh, I like
And
that.
that really hit me because for me, the heart, the foundation of myself is God. So having the strength of God to help me get through anything is to me what courage is about. You put yourself out there, you keep your foundation strong, and you push through, whether it's, a physical thing, a mental thing, supporting someone else who's going through a hard time, which is then going to be very hard for you. So that's what I see as my new definition of
I
courage.
love it. And everybody has different ones, and that's why I love asking this question and getting to
Yeah.
know. And they all relate and they're all different, which is
Mhm.
kind of cool. The only person that's ever looked it up and gave the definition from the dictionary was my brother.
Ah,
So you've had lots of courage journeys, from business to personal. Let's start with the personal side. You have a nonprofit called Bite Me Cancer, and I know, and this is in line with you're just sharing your faith and your courage definition. So let's start there, and then we'll go to business and the disc stuff. But so share a little bit about, how you got the nonprofit, the journey, and you're still going through this journey. And my hope in these podcast episodes is when people listen to it, they can say me too. Not that bad things happen, and I know some things, but have happened to you, but it gives people hope and permission. There is a light on the other side. It's interesting. I'm on my youngest sister has Down syndrome,
mhm.
and I'm on a Down syndrome Facebook group. And there was some mom that reached out last night anonymously, but she's like, I'm so sad, I'm so depressed. Her baby's 10 days old, and
Oh,
all the things. And I was tempted, and I may go back and do it, as post a picture of my sister 42 years later. Like, when you're middle of it, you don't think you'll ever come out,
yeah.
but you do, and you come back stronger. And but it'll help people. So let's talk about that journey. Share your courage journey and any why not to know today moments, like those moments that you remember exactly where you were, what you're doing, and that were pivotal into your life.
Okay. Well, my daughter was 17 when she was diagnosed with a rare form of thyroid cancer in April 2010. So that was very surreal, quite a shock, devastating. And there was no treatment available for her kind of cancer back then. So it was basically go in, have surgery, and then who knows what will happen. So there were a lot of very strong faith moments from the day of the diagnosis that just kept giving me these messages of hope and to keep going. She was a trooper. The first evening of the diagnosis, this is a good example of how she pushed us and we helped her. She had wanted to go watch a soccer game at her high school because her history coach was the coach. Her history teacher was the coach, and if you showed up, you got extra credit. So as we were going to the doctor to get her fine needle biopsy to find out if this really was cancer, she had taken Valium, and on the way she was like, "Oh, can I still go to the soccer game when I get back?" We're like, "Oh, okay, yeah, maybe." And in my head, I'm thinking, well, geez, I don't even know what we're going to learn. So on the way home, after we learned of the cancer diagnosis, my husband had to get ready for a trip the next morning. He had to go get a haircut. And so I took her home and we ordered pizza. And I was saying to her, this can be whatever you want this to be. You see people on television say, this was the best thing that ever happened to me. It changed my life. I said, you can be mad, you can be sad, you can, turn this into something positive. But you have permission to do everything, and we will do all that we can to learn all that we can. So then a few minutes later, I was over in the kitchen and she said, "Hey, Mom, can I still go to the soccer game?" And I turned around and I was like, that's what I mean. You can do whatever you want. This is it. And she's just looking at me, rolling her eyes. And she said, "No." I just need to know if I can still drive since I took Valium. Oh, yeah. She took off and I just sat there by myself thinking, what is happening? Like she's going to watch a soccer game. My husband's getting a haircut. My daughter was diagnosed with this rare cancer.
Yeah, life is still happening.
So when she came home, we started actually, it was so surreal, joking, saying, okay, you still have to do your homework even though you have cancer. Okay, don't forget, you still have to make your bed because you have cancer. And we made this into this joke, at least for that evening. Well, within a week, she had said, you know what? I want to lead a Relay for Life team for the American Cancer Society. And we have had, her godfather had cancer and we had attended some of his relays in the past. And I'm like, no, we have to like go to Johns Hopkins. We've got to learn all this stuff. We've got to figure out if you're having surgery. She said, no, I'm going to do it. And one night she had the laptop and she's like, I need your credit card. I'm going to sign up, mom and dad. And we were joking with her how she didn't have a name for her team. And out of that conversation, a very funny way, but I know we don't have time for all of the details. The name Bite Me Cancer came up to be her Relay for Life team. So it turned out there was a relay in Oakton in June. Her surgery was May 17th. And even then it was like, why not? Like what?
Why not today?
Right. Why should we stop her? This is what she
Right.
wants to do. It could be terrible. It could be wonderful. Well, the surgery was terrible. She lost the use of a vocal cord. The nerve had to be removed. She had cancer in many other areas than the doctors ever thought possible. And so we were devastated again, but she would not give up that relay. And so I said to her, we'll go to the relay. It's an overnight event. You're not staying overnight. She's like, yeah, yes, I am. And so she raised the most money that Relay had ever raised, her and her team, her dad and me and all of our friends, over $20,000.
Wow.
That night was one of the most surreal nights. They do the little, the lighted, what do you call those things? Luminaries.
Mm-hmm.
And she slept and Michael and I walked around and we started noticing all these luminaries with Bite Me Cancer and Nikki Ferraro on them.
Wow.
Turned out there were like 350 and we had only had like 20 people buy them. It was surreal. And the leaders of the relay said, well, we had all these luminaries and nobody was purchasing them. And for some reason we chose yours and your daughter and we just put her name on all of them.
Wow.
And that was powerful.
Gives me chills.
Yeah. So from then on, she just was focused on, okay, well, now I want a foundation, mom and dad, since you guys are in other nonprofits and have led other nonprofits, and now I want one.
Well, and it just gives a testament to how much kids they catch, and they say caught and not taught, how much she watched you guys and her determination. And sometimes it's kind of like a little kid, they fall down and they're okay. But when you make a big deal, they're like, oh, maybe I should be upset or maybe I should act hurt. But the fact that she was just, perfect why not today moments, that she just wanted to live her life. And I think that's the message I really want to pass on to people. Like, things are going to happen, but we got to just continue to live our life and enjoy our life and not become a victim.
Right. Yeah.
So I know, so you started the foundation, Bite Me Cancer. So what is the goal of that? The mission? What do you guys do? I know you do some cool things.
Yeah. So she started it September 2010 with two main goals. One was to help support teenagers with all kinds of cancers because they fall through the cracks. She experienced that herself. The younger pediatric patients get lots of teddy bears and little coloring books and all kinds of things. And then you have the adult services. But the teenagers kind of are stuck in the middle. She was in an adult ward. Even when she went through radiation, it was adult patients. And so she developed a teen support bag. And during that first year, we thought, let's see if we can raise enough money to give out 100 bags in the local area to teenagers who deal with cancer. The other goal is to directly fund thyroid cancer research grants, not just give money to a larger organization like American Cancer Society, but actually meet the doctors and look at the research. Because at the time, and still today, thyroid cancer is one of the leading, fastest growing cancers to be diagnosed. And for a while, it was actually higher up than leukemia. But because it doesn't have a National Thyroid Cancer Association, it didn't have the PR. So we've been doing all this, and I honestly thought this would be a great project for her senior year of high school, keep her positive. But it has, here we are now 14 years later. We've given bags to almost 13,000 teenagers in every state and DC. We get calls and emails constantly from the teens or their parents or the child life staffs. We're actually stuffing 350 bags on this weekend to send out. And we have we're on our 10th thyroid cancer research grant as well. So we've been able to expand some of our support services for teenagers, taking them to baseball game or hockey game, have some fun events at Dave and Buster's, all due to donations, either corporate suites or just donations that help us pay for things. And yeah, here we are. We keep going. This month, next month is our 10th annual wine dinner, which is a fundraiser to focus specifically on raising funds for these teen support bags. And she still wants to do it. Every year we ask her, because now she's 31, thank God. She still deals with cancer, has to take oral chemo pills every day. That's been since 2014. And it's been great. At least there's treatment now. Until, those first 4 years, we had nothing.
Right.
But every year she says, Mom, if we don't do this, who's going to do this? We can do it. So yeah,
That's awesome.
here's where we are with the foundation.
Love it. I love that, she's committed to it.
Yeah.
And I love the connection, her and Michael, and they're working out. And as we talked about, the cycle studio or cycle spins teacher that knows them.
Yeah.
So do you wanna talk about Michael and his newest journey? Do we want to share that?
Yeah, we can share a little bit of that. We don't have all the details of the treatment plan until tomorrow, but he was diagnosed with prostate cancer a little over a month ago, which was quite a shock. And for me, it's been another surreal moment of now I have 2 out of the 3 of us dealing with this. But, he is who he is. So he's been sharing his story online. He's very focused on educating other men about getting your PSA, keeping up with your medical treatments. And he's doing the same thing that we wanted to do with the foundation and, try to help others and give back. A lot of people who get prostate cancer get a lower level of it, and it's kind of an in and out thing, but his is a higher level. It's not spread yet, but he's got to have a bigger treatment plan. So I think it was mid-August, he had to go get a PET scan done. And my daughter, she still has to get scans done and doesn't enjoy going even into the buildings to get them because it's, little PTSD moments here and there. And he was joking with her about how, I used to go with you when you were little. I would take you, to all your scans. You want to go with me? And in the background, I'm thinking, oh, no way. And she goes, I will be there for you. You've been there for me. And to watch them both drive off together to go to that scan that day was just, oh, to my heart. I couldn't believe it. But,
I love that you guys are sharing your story. And that's why I wanted to have you on the podcast. That one, you're sharing your story and you're trying to educate. I love Michael's Facebook Live of sharing story and encouraging other people, because often, and I don't want to, what in the experience I've seen is men are often not as forthcoming with going to the doctor.
Absolutely.
And I know 2 people that had prostate cancer or colon cancer, sorry, both diagnosed within a year. And it got to the point they both, when they were diagnosed, were almost dead.
Wow, yeah.
Because of not getting treatment. One is doing great, and unfortunately the other one passed away. And so, educating other people. And I think if we can share the message and educate people and let's be aware and let's talk about these things.
Yeah, for sure. Everybody has stuff.
Yep, we all do. And I found when talking to people, there's always a story behind the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I've never really put myself in the why us, why me, why her. Especially having the foundation, we hear from so many families, even who have, 2-year-olds, 4-year-olds who have passed away from cancer. So it is a constant reminder of how blessed we are.
Right.
I don't, for a moment, I'm not glad we're going through this, but there were times when my daughter started college, that was a hard thing to let her go away to college.
Mhm.
She went to JMU, but in that first month, there must have been 8 students on campus who died from different things, all freak accidents, fell off
Yeah.
a skateboard, hit their head, walked in front of a bus, all these things. And I remember on the last one, which was a freshman from our area, who we didn't know, but it really hit my daughter. And I hung up the phone after she told us what happened. And I said, I hope those parents were grateful for every day. If this journey didn't teach us anything, it taught us that.
Well, and I think that's really what I want to do with this podcast and the Why Not Today message is
Mhm.
encourage people. We got to live our day, our life. We are not promised tomorrow.
Right.
And, cancer is one thing that affects a lot of people, but there's other things that happen and deaths. And I
Yeah.
know several moms that have lost sons, and it seems to be a lot of sons, and it just, again, freak accidents
Hmm.
and in their 20s.
Yeah.
And so one good friend of mine, I've had her on the podcast before, Jody, lost her son. He was 22. It was,
Mm.
I think, 6 or 7 years ago. But she shares it on social media and shares pictures of him. And one of the things she says is take the pictures and the goofy pictures and the dumb pictures and save them. Don't get rid of them if you're not perfect, because you're going to see the laughter and the happy. And
Yeah.
yeah, we got to live our life and
I
enjoy our life.
actually, when Nicole was 3, I started a journal. I don't remember where I got the idea from, but it was to write down all her little comments and antics, the
I've
goods,
heard
the
of that.
bads. And I thought at the time, oh, this would be great for her. Like at 18 years old or 21, I'll give it to her. But it was really ended up to be for me. When people talk about life is short, when I go back through that, there are so many details and blessings and things I would never have remembered
No.
that fill my memory bank and fill my life with her with so much more. And I have yet to give it to her. She jokes about it. She's like, am I ever going to get that? I'm like, well, I don't know. I love to read it still.
That's fun.
Um, the other quick thing I would say that from the day of diagnosis, actually from the 2 days before that, which was Easter, there's a whole nother reason. The Bible verse, John 3:16, came to her on Easter and then came to me on the day of diagnosis. And then to the next year would pop up like on the way to surgery. All these, that to me is like the foundation of life, John 3:16. And so it almost was like, okay, we're headed, the bigger picture is beyond what we're dealing with right
I
here,
gotcha.
then we just go for it.
Yep,
And I felt
exactly.
like I was given a gift of being the caretaker for my daughter. She was not mine. She came from God, and she was a gift to me. So that really is like the biggest picture of how I live life.
Love it. Love the story. And I love how you guys just turned it around
Mhm.
and are positive about it and share it. All right. So we're going to pivot completely and go to business. So
Okay.
you and your husband have a leadership training business?
Yep, a team building, leadership management training company that he started in 1995. And when you were asking, what would be what was an example of my why not today moment, it has to do with the business.
Okay.
At the point where he started the business, I was an executive at a telecom trade association in Old Town Alexandria. So it was about a 45-minute commute on a good day.
Mhm.
Our daughter was just a couple years old when I took that job. And we merged immediately with another association, and I was put in a higher level, and I was commuting between DC and Virginia and all over the place. And over the next few years, I was realizing like, oh, this is really not what I want to do with my life. And I kept thinking, is it, I just want to work closer to home? Do I hate telecom? This was when cell phones and pagers were still two separate things.
Mhm.
Um,
Way back when.
yeah. And I was finding I was actually starting to get headaches, stomach aches. And there was I took a week off and did a staycation, planted flowers, walked in a craft store, looking around like, oh, people do this like all day long. And went back to work refreshed. And the next day, there I was back in all the physical stress ailments again. One day I was driving to work and I put on a Tony Robbins tape. And one of the questions was, if you could do anything you want, knowing you're not going to hear no, what would it be? And so I was sort of laughing. I'm like, oh, this will be fun. Let's see. I want to work at home. And this was long before people really worked at home.
Right.
I want to take vacation when I want. I want to be done by like 3 o'clock so I can be with my daughter after school. I want to do this and that. And there was like 5 or 6 things. And I was just laughing, thinking, yeah, that'll never happen. And all of a sudden I had this eye-opening thought of, oh, my husband has a business. Why don't I just work with him? So I came home that night and I said, hey, I got to tell you what happened on the way to work. And I told him all this. And he goes, well, yeah, maybe like 4 years from now you can do that. And I said, yeah, no, I'm going to do it like within 3 months.
Good for you.
And he's like, what are you talking about? Well, you can't afford that because I was really pulling I was almost at $100,000 back in 1995. So I was
Right.
pretty well up there, at least in the association. And I said, well, what do we have to do? So we put a business plan together, and I am a very low risk person. So was not me at all. And so the result was we would have to double the income of the business to just, be able to pay the bills and get through it. So I was like, okay, then that's what we're gonna do. He's like, okay. So my my employees, my friends, they were like, oh, when I remember my going away party. Oh my God, you're so brave. Oh my gosh, I can't believe you're taking this risk. And I remember thinking and saying, no, this is meant to be, like, this is going to work. I can't keep up the pace and the physical issues and all that. Well, I would say maybe within that year, as we realized, oh, we're really doing this, I thought, wow, how stressed was I that me quitting a job and working full time with my husband felt like the easier solution, the calmer solution, the more exciting solution. Even when I look back sometimes now, when I was preparing for this, I thought, I still can't believe I did that.
Yeah, it's definitely what I call the why not today moment, that you just did it and you're like, I'm going to do it. Everybody else is like, what are you doing? And when you know that you know that you know, like
Yeah,
when I quit my job, it was 25 years ago, people were like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm going to figure it out. And I had a team member one time that wanted to quit her job. And I'm like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen is you have to bless more people and work a little harder. And the business probably grew so much faster because you jumped in and you had a have to now, where you had
right.
the safety net of your salary. You didn't have it. And
Yeah,
so sometimes those things happen, and the journey is we have to, and we're so much more capable than we ever imagined. And so much more is
absolutely.
possible.
Absolutely. We use so little of our brain,
Oh,
um,
so true.
that it's just phenomenal what can be done. And yeah, so here we are now, celebrating the 29th anniversary of the business. My husband jokes that we're at 41 years marriage, and that's probably even the bigger uh
Yeah.
challenge that we've overcome, is that how did we work together all these years and now really on two businesses,
Yeah.
both in our home. And the interesting thing about the business is when the year that Nicole was diagnosed, we were sort of like, oh my God, like, how are we going to run our business? Because there was a lot more we had to give to her. That ended up to be our most highest our revenue year
Of
up until
course.
that point, of course, right? It happened again in 2014. She had cancer challenges in her lungs. We had to go to surgery, and then I had to go to the chemo, and that ended up to be the biggest year ever. And now last year was again the biggest year ever. And she had all kinds of challenges with her side effects from chemo last year that scared the hell out of us. And now this year he's got his diagnosis, and now we're beating last year's. And we're
Yep.
spending less time, sometimes some days we don't spend much time at all on training, or he does and I don't. So
Right.
it's not
And that
about the
just
money at all,
proves
but it's,
that God's going to take care of us. And sometimes we just got to let it go,
I
and we
know.
can't be micromanaging it. And it just works. And I found that with my business. I quit my job just because I'm like you, there's a better world out here. 6 months later, my dad had a stroke and I was able to be there.
Yeah.
And, you know, be at the hospital and be there for family and not have to take off. Thank goodness you didn't have that job.
Right.
And you guys grew the business when you did, so you didn't have to depend on your salary,
Mhm.
that then you could step out and help Nikki when you needed to.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, can you imagine if you were working and would have had to say, I have to take time off?
Yeah, I mean, just for the medical would have been a complete challenge. And I still tell her every once in a while, like when people will say, you know, this foundation is doing amazing things and you've raised all this money and all. And Michael and I will look at each other like, well, if we didn't work at home and we didn't have all this flexibility, there might not be a foundation,
No.
or it would be very small compared to what we're able to do now.
Yep, exactly.
So, yeah.
So I know you're going to be the guest for my Why Not Today Connects luncheon at
Yes.
the end of September. And so one of the things we're going to talk about is the DISC personality
Mhm.
assessments. And I know that's what you get, one of the things you guys teach and do with your company. So
Mhm.
I just thought it would be fun to give kind of a big overview, kind of a tease of what we're going to talk about. And, you know, obviously everybody listening to the podcast cannot come to the luncheon. So give a little bit of information, but I'm hoping people will listen to this and say, oh, I'm going to come to that luncheon and learn more. So what's share? I know for me in my Mary Kay career, we've used the DISC personality assessment often, and they even used to have catalogs and different marketing materials and had 4 women in the 4 different personalities. So why don't you
Ah,
give a brief overview of it and then how it can relate to work, personal, knowing yours, and then how you can work with other people.
yeah. So the everything disc model is one we've used the entire time we've had the company, and there are different disc, slightly off models depending on who the publisher is. But the one we use is the original one, and it's got a small I, so it's DISC with a small I. And there are basically 4 styles, which are the DISC. So D is the more direct, active, sometimes skeptical, in control style. The I is the active, accepting, influential style. The S is very reflective, sensing, accepting of people, stable. And the C is more reflective into the numbers, can be more skeptical, trying to like dot the I's. And then within the expanded disc, then you have combinations of those DISCs that bring it more specific to you as a person. And when we do it in the workplace, we ask people to fill out the assessment based on their work styles. But you certainly use it in personal life. That is probably why my husband and I are still together after all the pressures and running these businesses, because we knew his style very early on before I joined the business. And then I actually used his disc materials in my telecom association, just in my department. And it was so eye-opening when you have people who talk differently, listen differently, are just different. There's a very easy way to judge and think, you know, you're right, they're wrong. And so when you have, I'll just use the model of my husband and I. So he's a high D, high I. So he's under stress, he will be very, you know, let's just get this done, under control.
Yeah.
Or, you know, if he was in a meeting, he would, you know, be telling people this is what we're going to do. I am a low D, but I'm a very high S, which is the very sensing, supportive person, and he's a very low S. So we joke about how when there's stress, I want to take care of it, and he wants to tell somebody what to do. So when we're in the home together, and even with our daughter, we know, like, if one of us is under stress, it's like, and we'll joke, oh, your dad's being a D again, and or my style. So we can learn how to interact with each other better. In the workplace, when I did it with my team, one of our fellow VPs was a very low S, low C. Just give me the numbers. I'll tell you what to do with them. And I would come into her office before I learned this, and I would start chatting like, how was your weekend? How are your kids? Because I'm a high S. I want to know about the family. And we were not gelling at all. I was just wasting her time.
Mhm.
But once we went through this and then I talked to her about it, we both acknowledged that just because we have a different priority doesn't mean either is a bad person or wasting each other's time. And so we started to get along great. Um, if you're in a team and somebody's the idea person, they come up with the ideas and you go, okay, go take that and give me a business plan. Well, they're not the business plan person. They're a very
Right.
low C, so they
Mhm.
can't do that.
Yeah,
So
I can
it's,
relate. So
yeah,
is DISC, is it something we're born with or we
there's a natural
learn?
tendency. There's natural tendency, but you can adjust based on your environment
Right.
and you can learn. And sometimes you can just appreciate where you have to put yourself out of your comfort zone to be a different style, and you know that that might stress you out. So you prepare for that
Yeah.
ahead of
And
time.
I think that has to do with courage that you have, you know what you, how you show up.
Mhm.
And it's being able to, what I've learned is then being able to figure out other people's, and there's pretty quick ways to figure it out. Just how somebody walks in the room or asking them a couple questions, you can pretty easily figure out, and being able to adapt to their style. I always use, with the Mary Kay example in my Mary Kay business, like the D personality, if she's trying products, she wants to know how quick she can use it, how quick we're going to be done. Like, I don't want to spend an hour doing this party, if it's a party kind of situation. The I is looking at herself in the mirror the entire time, not listening to a word I'm saying. The S is more concerned, like, okay, I might have to get home to my family. Are they calling? Or can I get this product and is it going to work? Because my family is important. I don't want to spend money on me. And the C wants to know every single flipping ingredient, which obviously I'm not a C the way I put it.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
it just works. And so knowing people's personality and be able to adjust that, when I knew people's personality, I could adjust. And, as you go through life and work and doing events and things, we talked about the other day, you and I were talking about people's personalities, and under stress, how do we show up, and our personality gets bigger, and to know that you need to control it so it doesn't get big in the wrong way.
That is right. And with life changes, people can have big adjustments.
Yeah.
Sometimes when there's a child or there's a firing at a work or
Mhm.
whatever, they can change. But it can stay with you if you let it, because you can learn so much from it and learn
Yeah.
more about people and be more forgiving. And it's not all about you.
Yeah, and as we're
So,
talking, and I'm thinking about my mother, she's got a lot of S in the detail and family, and and she often is like, will start telling me a story, and it's kind of a joke that she starts telling me something. I'm like, and what was she wearing? Like, just get to the point. Like, what time's dinner? Well, we're gonna do this. I'm like, I just want to know, what time do I have to show up? You know? And
yeah,
that's the D in me, is like, I don't need all the details. Just tell me the answer.
right,
So,
right.
but yeah, we could talk about this all day, and I'm excited we're going to be at the lunch and we're going to do some fun exercises around it.
Yeah, it's
Um,
just a fun activity. I don't want anybody to think, oh God, I'm gonna have to, tell secrets, or I'm gonna have to learn something, or I'm gonna have to
nope,
like
it's just going
remember
to be
something.
fun.
It's just a fun game with cards, with disc cards that gets people up and around and looking at all these different disc words to see what fits with each person. And then they can just relate to it and share it with the group.
That's awesome. So, how would you encourage somebody else to be courageous?
I think for me, it really does come back down to faith. It really does. I use the let go and let God a lot. And I feel like, we hear life is short all the time. And I really try to look at it as life is full. And you can be, you should always be in the now and not worrying about things that haven't taken place yet, or might, or probably will never take place if you're worried about them, and just take step at a time. I mean, I've learned in this cancer journey, sometimes it's a day at a time, sometimes it's an hour at a time. It's
Mhm.
not usually a month or at a time. So you just give it a try. There's always something to fall back on. I
Right.
mean, in the end, you have your faith to fall back on, but there's other opportunities for jobs and other things to try if it doesn't work. But in your
Yeah.
heart, if you know you want to try it, then you just need to try it.
So true. Well, I always try to connect this back to my dad, and people are like, "Well, I've never met your dad." Which, did
I
you ever
know.
meet my dad?
No, no.
Okay, I didn't know. I mean, he was started the chamber and around lots of rest and things. I was actually just having coffee with somebody today that I think my dad was the first president of the chamber, and she was like the third or fourth.
Ah.
And it's interesting that two of the other ones were bosses of mine, so I must be following this chamber thing. But I always try to connect things back. So he did do the redevelopment. He was a city planner, did the redevelopment of Albany, New York, believe it or not,
Oh,
years ago.
wow.
And then the other thing is just your determination, and as you guys have fought the cancer battle, and he was very much like that. He had a stroke in 2000, and I mean, he was down and out, like months comatose, didn't think he'd make it.
Wow.
And he did, and came back strong. And, you know, he had such a determination to fight. And he's like, I have grandchildren I need to teach people. I'm not done in this world. And people would ask, how are you? And he's like, I'm on this side of the grass. And then he
Oh,
was diagnosed with cancer a few months before he finally passed away. And he wanted to go through the treatment. And we're all thinking, really? Like, I mean, his quality of life was not that great at that point, but he was fighting till the end. And,
wow.
you know, he was not going to let life, you know, he's going to live fullest till the end. And he did. You know,
Wow.
the day he passed away, he actually went to the dentist, like led a regular or normal day.
He went to the dentist and then he passed away later that day.
That night, yeah, he went to the dentist. It happened to be his birthday. He had a dentist appointment. Um, was on the phone talking to people. He was always at night after work. He owned his own business, so he'd go to the office and he'd start making the phone calls. It's funny. I met somebody in Kathy Hudgens' office, and Kathy was a part of the Fairfax County Board in the Reston area. And I met somebody at a Mary Kay event one time, and she said she worked for Kathy. I'm like, oh, my dad, you know, I know Kathy, but like my dad does. And he goes, what's your dad's name? And I told him. She's like, I have his phone number on my desk. He calls me daily. But
Great
definitely a
to be
big
that
fan.
active.
Yeah. So, well, thank you, Sharon, for all this, and probably
Oh,
went a
thank
little
you.
longer, but we had so much to talk about. And so hopefully people listening will share this with other people. Um, and um, come to the luncheon if you're around. And we have a couple weeks from when this is going to launch to the luncheon. So the luncheon is September 26th, so Thursday. And so thank you, everybody, for joining us in this inspiring journey. Remember, every day is an opportunity to take action, chase your dreams, make a difference. So why not today? And make sure you subscribe, like it, share with a friend. Check everything out for Why Not Today at the whynottodaypodcast.com. And again, thank you for Sharon for your story. And thanks, everybody, for listening and watching.
That's
And
wonderful.
remember, say, why not today?
That's right. Bye.